All right, hi everyone. Thanks for coming to my talk today. So many of you are aware that Alaska Native communities are at risk from flooding and erosion, and this is leading to a number of different problems like infrastructure being destroyed, not being able to access subsistence resources, and a lot of anxiety towards the future. And so one of the things that we're doing is developing long-term relationships with these communities. And now these communities have indigenous knowledge that has observed these changes for many, many decades and have a really good understanding of the processes and impacts that are resulting from them. But what they often lack is scientific tools and methods to accurately measure and map these changes. And so this is where we come in as scientists. We found that developing these relationships through things like school programs, working with citizen scientists and training them how to establish and maintain erosion monitoring sites, and other things like meeting with local elders and hearing about what their observations are. We found that this is a way to serve the community. Once we can develop this trust and these relationships, we're then able to successfully go into these communities, collect data, and also receive data from the local monitors and put that into a framework that we can develop these community prioritized data sets. And so our goal with all of this is to provide accurate maps, accurate information regarding these coastal hazards and how they're impacting their communities. And this then goes into decision-making, local decision-making, and mitigation and adaptation planning. So we found that the key part of all of this, we know how to do the science, but the key part is actually working directly with the communities year after year and developing these longer-term relationships. So there's this foundation of trust that we could build from, and that allows us to kind of do our jobs and provide the information that they need. So this has resulted in we're working with over 15 communities in Western Alaska, and it's really kind of this foundation that now we're trying to expand out and reach other communities. Any questions?
If schools or members of the public want to participate in community-based monitoring, how can they do that?
Yeah, so we work with a number of different partners, including the state's Geologic and Geophysical Survey's Coastal Hazards Program, and myself at the Arctic Coastal Geoscience Lab. And so we basically are able now to almost work as a contractor for the Native communities and provide these types of services. I brought with me a few brochures that this talks about a couple of our sites, and I encourage you to take one of these and read more about some of the work that we're doing here. Any more questions?
Are there changes in the erosion rate in the community, or is it more a homogeneous picture all over the Alaskan coast?
Yeah, that's a really great question because, so the question is, are there kind of some places eroding faster than others, or is it kind of all the same? And it's definitely not all the same. It's highly variable. Some communities have much less risk than others. Some communities can merely move upland into the hills. Other communities are on a barrier beach and they're not able to do that. Some areas are not really eroding at all, but other areas are being impacted by flooding and storms. So that's why each community is unique in how they're changing and how their ability to kind of deal with those changes. For example, one community has a rock quarry right up the hill from their village. And so they're able to take rocks from that quarry and armor their coastline, where another community might be on a barrier beach that doesn't have access to those types of resources and are much worse off, I'd say. Thanks.